Hello, everybody. Today we are going to make a buttermilk wheat biscuit. These are a great savory biscuit. But the main thing that we really want to be testing out is our new setup for live. So I have a switcher over here, and it allows me to switch between different camera angles so that you can see better what I'm doing. So this is camera angle 1. It's a wide of me. You can kind of see everything happening in the kitchen. When I go to camera 2, it's kind of like close up on my hands. And then camera 3 is a bird's eye. Also, I have a huge TV in front of me. So if you are typing in questions, I can see those. So as I kind of go through the live and I ask questions or ask you for questions, if you want to type those in, I'll be able to see them, right? So anybody watching right now, go ahead and pop in a question and let's test this bad boy out while I start doing other things with my food processor. So typically when you see how that smoothly switched between that top bird's eye back to me, wow. Okay, so typically when you make biscuits, people talk about cutting in the butter and they like talk about things staying all cold. I go ahead before I do this recipe and I do throw my butter into the freezer. And then I just pull it out before I chop it up. Ta-da. Do we have a live yet? Yeah, let me see the hands. Oh, here. Hands. Here are my hands. Thank you for sending that question in. Oh, look, yeah, and you can really see kind of everything happening in the video right now. Let me get that out of the way too. Okay, even cleaner shot. So for this though, I'm going to use my food processor. And I'm going to use my food processor because I find it makes an even easier biscuit. And I find that the easiest biscuits are the biscuits I'll make all of the time. So this one is a whole wheat buttermilk biscuit. And that whole wheat is a pastry flour. Whole wheat is just the actual like whole germ of wheat ground up. So you get something that tastes a lot nuttier, right? It tastes like a lot more full of flavor. And when I'm talking about savory, especially like a savory biscuit, a savory buttermilk biscuit, I want to add a little bit more interest in with the flour. And I get that by using a whole wheat pastry flour. Pastry flour has lower protein, so it makes for a more tender crumb or a more tender, more delicate crumb on whatever you're baking. So that's why cakes, it calls for cake flour because that has a lower protein, which makes it more tender. So 2 cups of the whole wheat pastry flour. And then this is 2 cups of the White Lily self-rising flour. White Lily is also a lower protein flour so that you get more tender biscuits. That's why ladies in the South are always using White Lily on their biscuits. It'll specifically say in recipes White Lily. If you don't have White Lily, you can just use AP flour with a tablespoon of cornstarch. That'll make it lighter. Or you can use cake flour in your recipes. So that's 1 cup, and then we're going to do another cup. Okay, let's see this next question. Do you grind your own flours? Oh, I do not grind my own flours. I wish I did. There is a mill here in Kentucky that I use a lot of the flours from. It's called Weisenberger Mills, and it is it's a Kentucky mill. I wish I ground my own. You are amazing if you are grinding your own. Thank you for that question. Okay, that's two cups of the self-rising flour, right? And now self-rising flour has already in it, oh, look, here's Donnie. Look, get in there, Don. He didn't want to. This is my tech guy. Donnie's doing something right now, but I don't know what that is. He'll tell me in a minute. Okay, so, he said hi. That's Don. Whenever I go live on Instagram, this is Don. So self-rising flour already has baking soda in it and a little bit of salt. The whole wheat doesn't, so we do need to add in some of our leavening ingredients. So that's going to look like baking powder. And I'm not going to put baking soda in this. That's very controversial. Technically, that is not right. Like technically, when you're using buttermilk, you should be putting in baking soda to kind of balance and neutralize your dough, but I don't want to do that, right? Because I kind of want that tangy flavor to remain there. And by only using baking powder, I force that tanginess in my dough. So my biscuits, again, have a little bit more of a unique flavor. I saw somebody else. Hello, Damaris. How are you doing? By my guy, Justin. Hello, I'm doing great. I'm loving my t-shirt too, by the way. This is from a child's store, but it says readers make leaders, which I think is just a really good t-shirt. Okay, so 3 teaspoons of baking powder or 1 tablespoon, and then a teaspoon of salt and 2 teaspoons of sugar. Let's try out some other questions, right? While I'm doing that. I just told you the amounts. Also, if you look in the description, the recipe is there. So if you are like, if I'm talking too fast or if I forget to tell you an amount, it's in the description. Okay, let's see another one. Oh, A. Wilcox 12 does grind their own flours. Okay, you guys, that's 2027 goals. I'm not even putting it on the 2026 goals because already in 2026, my goals are, like my resolutions for 2026 are, take a walk every day. I've done that 3s of times. No big deal. 3 is better than none. But it'll keep getting better. So the intention is to walk every day. And not really for the exercise portion, but just because I find if I am out in the world walking, I am more happy. And also I'll like notice little things in my neighborhood or little things about life, right? The other intention is to journal every day. I've done it knows of days, guys. Let me just be really honest. The other thing is I'm trying to declutter my life, which is not actually going very well because the truth is I just love an estate sale. I just love little trinkets. You can tell, look at the shelf. We even took some stuff down. Okay. So I've put all of my dry ingredients in here. Now let's just pulse. Ready? Oh, 1, 2. And you'll see it come together kind of in your, see, that's the whole wheat flour. Look how different the color is. So just pulse it together. Okay. Okay, so see how those are all come together. Now it's time to add our butter, right? Now, typically when you're talking about biscuits, everybody's constantly talking about the butter, keeping it so cold, grating it, you know, doing all these crazy things so that you get flaky biscuits. These are not flaky biscuits. These are going to be a cakey biscuit. A cakey biscuit is when you have the butter still very, very cold, but in much smaller pieces. And it creates the perfect biscuit to serve as almost like a roll, right? It works as like biscuits and gravy biscuits. Flaky biscuits I find are good when you're trying to have like a sandwich biscuit. But for this, I want something that's going to like sop up some soup. So, right, I'm making these tonight. I think I'm going to do split pea soup. I haven't had split pea soup in a while. And it's so good. Like it's one of those like recipes that I always forget to make. I'm working on another cookbook. And so it's filled with all these like classic Southern recipes. And it's making me reevaluate all those things that we had growing up. And split pea soup was like, I think of split pea soup as like a very classic Southern kind of soup, but you don't really see it. Like there's nowhere in the world to go out and get like some mean split pea soup. Okay, so that's 2 sticks of butter. And you can see I chopped them up pretty big, right? Let's go to the switcher. Boom. Now we're from the top. You can see how big they are, right? You just kind of put that in. And then I'm going to switch back to my other switcher angle. You all also, thank you for being here with me as we're testing this out. Okay, I got to put the lid on. Because it is making it so we can go live more often and kind of show you all this fun stuff. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm counting because usually I do it 10 to 12 times. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That didn't work. It still needs more. If you look in here, oh, hold on. Let me show you. This still needs more. You can see that there's still like large pieces in there. So I need to blend it some more. Okay. So just kind of turn that on. And we're looking for it to look like sand. Okay. There. I'm just going to let it spin. You can kind of see, you'll stop seeing those big chunks. Are we looking good? Now we're looking good. Okay. Boom. Turn it off. Okay. So when you were looking at it overhead, you can see in here, look at those little, see how it looks like crumbly sand? There's like some pieces in there. It almost looks like wet sand. There are some larger pieces that would create some flakiness. I might even go like slightly smaller on this. You want your pieces to really be the size of a pea. The size of a pea, which is all the time in recipes, it'll be like, cut it up to the size of the pea. The size of a pea in a biscuit is not going to make an incredibly flaky biscuit, right? That's going to be really small. This is too large, right? If you want really flaky biscuits, what you would do is you would take your butter and then you kind of take it and you flake it and you flatten it out. Because for flaky biscuits, you want not round pieces of fat, you want flat pieces of fat in there. So you kind of want to encase these flat pieces of fat inside of your dough, and that's what makes for flaky biscuits, not round pieces. Round pieces, that doesn't work, right? Okay, well, let's put that back on and blend it another second. One thing that you cannot do at this point, and off. Okay, one thing you cannot do at this point is overmix. Now that looks better, right? All the pieces look a little bit more consistent, right? This is going to be a very, very tender, very, 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 very cakey biscuit. Oh, I got to get my biscuits out of the oven. Sorry, guys. I have an oven over here. Just kidding. I made some biscuits so you can see how they come out. Sneak peek. Whoop. Put them down over here. Those are my sneak peek biscuits. Okay. So one thing you cannot do when you're cutting in the fat is you really can't overmix, right? At that point, you could make your butter too hot and the butter would get you could turn this into a paste, but you couldn't overmix right now because to overmix any kind of a dough, you have to have liquid to it. You have to have that water. So whenever you're making that is not this wrong. That is too small. That was going to be a disaster. Hold please, everybody. I apologize. So one thing that you want to, whoops, sorry. Okay, so we're back. One thing you want to know is that you only start making tough biscuits or anything once you add the liquid, right? So that's when you have to really start paying attention to how much you've mixed. Okay. Now, all the dry ingredients go into your bowl and you make a little well and we're going to put in our liquid. If you want your biscuits to always be perfect, right? Like the exact same every single time, you're going to want to start weighing out your flour and weighing out your liquid. But for an everyday biscuit where you're like, it's going to be pretty good, you don't have to weigh it out, right? But if you want to, just know that when a recipe calls for a cup of flour is approximately 4.5 ounces, okay? So you can kind of adjust. Now, let's go to our top angle. Oh, let me see if there's more questions. Hold, please. I'm Elaine Benz from Seinfeld. Oh, I'm with Elaine. I don't know. Not sure if you like split pea soup. Oh, I didn't see that episode, but I love split pea soup. You should try it. It's really good. It's like a lentil soup. If you like lentil soup, you probably are going to like split pea soup. Okay, next question. What do you put the temperature on? Thank you so much. 450. Again, the recipe is up in the description, okay? So 450. And whenever you make biscuits, honestly, you really want a super hot oven because the second it goes in, you want the kind of rise that you get very, very fast. And then you want to spend the rest of the time in the oven solidifying that shape. Next question. I like flaky biscuits. I don't like the layered ones in the Grand's can. Yeah, those are, I've used them and I'll put something in the center of a Grand's biscuit for sure, but nothing beats a homemade biscuit, right? Even a bad homemade biscuit is not a bad thing. Okay, great. So thank you for those questions. As you can see, I do have to look away, but I can see your questions. Okay, now make a well in the center, okay? Then we're gonna put in 2 cups of buttermilk. I use a whole fat buttermilk. If you don't have buttermilk, that's okay. You can use yogurt, like half of this in yogurt, half of this in whole milk, and you'll get a very similar flavor, like a Greek yogurt, 1 cup, and then a cup of milk. I'm just using that. And look how thick it was, right? Oh, you can't really see how thick it was? That's the wrong angle. See? It's pretty thick. You can see how it's like kind of almost gravy-esque, right? So now we're going to mix. And the thing that I do, especially when I'm doing these for like lives and stuff, is your hands are going to get crazy messy. So I put on gloves. I know you can also just wash your hands, but it really is the easiest just to do this with your hands because you're going to want to feel this. All right. So I have my hands. I look like a surgeon. And then I'm just going to go in and I see how my fingers are open like that. I use it kind of like a, I don't know, like what is that thing? A rake. And so you kind of go through, right? And what you're looking for is you're looking for all of the moisture to combine with all of that flour, but it's not going to be smooth. It's still going to look very craggly and it's still going to look very dimply, right? Like all we're trying to do right now is get the actual dry ingredients into the moisture, right? And so I'm kind of just like turning and pressing a little bit. This is when you can start to develop some gluten, right? But like whole wheat flour has less ability to it because of all the bran. It isn't just the full gluten proteins, so it will always be a little bit more tender. And the white lily flour has less protein, so it'll also be a little bit more tender. Okay, so look, see how there's a little bit of moisture left in there? Like it's probably like not a lot, but a tablespoon. That amount is kind of important because you see all that. So use your hand and kind of get the rest of that liquid, and that will make sure that you get all that little bit from the bottom, and it's liquidy. Okay, now we talk about dusting our surface, so put that to the side. I grab a little bit of flour. You can use the pastry flour or you could use the whole wheat flour to be your like dusting flour. So I just put me a pile, right? I'm trying to show you all my containers so it's in real time. There's nothing worse than watching somebody do a recipe and everything's measured out. And you're like, wow, that looks so easy for them. It came together in like 4 seconds. I need smaller gloves. This one I'm trying to show you like real time with measuring, all of that. Okay, so you've dusted your surface, right? Now we're going to turn our dough out. There will be sometimes a little bit of that, right? That's a little bit of dry flour. Put that on the top. We're going to knead that in. Okay. Ready? Now kneading. Oh, I got to pull up my sleeves a little bit. Let's get crazy. Oh, I'm definitely getting flour on there. Okay. Ready? Knead. So, as you can see, it's like really dimply. Hold on. See if that's better. You can see it's super craggly and stuff, right? It's like really not together. But we need this to come together so that we have biscuits. Everybody talks about not overworking your biscuits, but you can also underwork your biscuits. If you don't work it enough, you haven't developed enough of the gluten to become the structure of the biscuit, and you'll get a super crumbly biscuit. We've all had them before. Somebody was worried about making too dry or hard of a biscuit, and they didn't knead them enough. This is like, it's like a comedy of errors with these gloves on. Actually, now that we're through with the mixing part, I kind of like, let's just get rid of it. I can't handle it. Okay, get rid of this. Now that we're done, that's the messiest part, is the mixing. Any piece of those little butter has fallen off, you see me putting it back in. And you can see it's not like a lot of flour, right? But as it starts to stick, see, I saw a little bit sticking, go back in and dust a little bit more, okay? Do we have any questions about biscuits? Does everybody make their own biscuit? I do. My mom made biscuits every single Sunday morning, and she did whole wheat flour always, but only whole wheat flour. So they were like, this like kind of flavor of a whole wheat biscuit tastes the most like a homemade biscuit to me. Like that's what my childhood biscuits taste like. Okay, so see how there's a little dimpling, but on the top, it's pretty like nice and smooth. You can even see like little pieces of the dough. Let me show you the technique. So I will, now that it's kind of come together, I press it into a disc, and then I'll fold one more time and press it out. Make sure to dust so we don't stick too bad. And you can use a rolling pin if you want to, but I just usually end up using it by hand, right? How's that look? Pretty good, right? Looking pretty good. Pressing, pressing, pressing. And we're looking for about 1 inch. Every so often I'll flip it over, especially because now, like if you're pressing like this, you're getting all these fingerprints in it, right? But you're pressing to get something flat. So if you want pretty biscuits on the top, you just flip that bad boy, dust off that surface, press a little bit more. Press, press, press. About 1 inch. Flip it again. Ooh la la. If you get too much flour, just do exactly what I'm doing, dusting it off. You can also use your pastry thing, right? Dust it off. Okay, now use a biscuit cutter or a cup. If you're using the cup, make sure you like kind of flour the edges. And then you just come in here and you go right to the edge, right? And you want to kind of press straight down. If you're using a biscuit cutter, it works even better. And then onto a lined cookie sheet. Go as close as you can because you want to get as many biscuits as you can every single time you re-roll the dough. Because every time you roll the dough, it does get like a little bit more tough. So as you're doing it, like see how there's very little here. Let me see. See how there's very little space? Like I'm not being like 1 biscuit, 2 biscuits, 3 biscuits, right? I'm really working it so I get as many biscuits as I can out of my first roll of the dough. Sometimes you accidentally get like a little moon shape, right? Like this. You'll be like, oh no. Here, I'll show you. And then I went like a little too close. Oh no. This is what happens when you knead a flour a little bit more. It's okay, it got stuck in there. It's all right. I can't show you on that one. So I need a little bit more flour, as demonstrated by the fact that my biscuit got stuck. Okay, and then what I was showing you is like, even if you mess up, just kidding. Okay, so here's, even when you get too close, see how that biscuit has like, it's not perfectly round. That was just because it was a little too close. No big deal. This part right here, that big old piece of butter is going to melt because it's not encased. It's going to melt all over the whole top of it, which is not ideal. So I might, on that biscuit, flip it over, and that bottom of that biscuit is going to be extra, extra crunchy because it's kind of going to cook in that like fat, right? Which is pretty yummy. Okay. So biscuits, I think I can get 2 more out of this, right? Come on, biscuits. Clearly a biscuit cutter is slightly easier because it's metal. Okay, last one. Now, what do we do with all this dough? Some people do not re-roll their dough, right? Some people are 1 roll kind of dough people. I am not that way, especially not because we're using flour that is so tender. So what I do is like, you can already see kind of the layers happening. See the baking soda and the buttermilk, or baking powder and the buttermilk working together. You can kind of see already a little bit of leavening happening. But I will just put this back together. If you're a person that doesn't want to re-roll, you want your biscuits to only be that first round of biscuits, it's fine. This is perfect for pot pie. This is a perfect topper. You just like bring it back together, and the next time you want to make pot pie, you have a crust that's already ready to go, right? But I think it's fine. Like, I think they still taste really, really good, even at 1 and 2 and 3 rolls, right? So typically mine will end up with 3 rolls for our biscuit recipe. I'll roll it once, I'll roll it twice, and then I'll show you what I do with my last one. That's too thick, really. And biscuits will double in size. If it's the proper ratio, that amount was going to go to that amount once it cooks, right? So however thick you want your biscuits to be, just know that cut it about, so that is going to double in size. Just cut it or press it out. Like, that's why it always says like press it out to 1 inch, because you kind of want a 2-inch thick biscuit, right? That's what I think is the perfect thickness on a biscuit. But for like a really tiny little biscuit, like if you're making mini biscuits for like appetizers or something like that, you would want to roll it out thinner because you don't want a skinny, super tall biscuit. That would look weird. Okay, so now I roll again. You just keep rolling and cutting and rolling and cutting and rolling and cutting. And then we brush and bake, okay? Hold on, please, I need another pan. Okay. How are we feeling? Do we have any questions? Any questions, anyone? What's your favorite way to eat biscuits? I think my favorite way is warm with butter is my favorite way to eat a biscuit. Or I love biscuits and gravy, truly. Like, there is, I think, nothing better for breakfast than biscuits and gravy. White gravy. What? There's a recipe for that. If you would like a recipe for white gravy, look on my YouTube page. There's one for white gravy. There's also other biscuits. There's like a drop biscuit recipe that is great. There's like a buttermilk biscuit recipe. There's also a tortilla soup recipe that is astoundingly good that goes really well with these. And I call these soup biscuits because they are more like a roll. Like, the texture is not flaky, and they're so hearty because of the whole wheat flour that they really make a nice, they they make a nice addition to like a dinner, right? So a whole wheat buttermilk feels more like a dinner roll, or feels like something a little bit different than just your classic buttermilk biscuit, which outside of Kentucky and outside of the South, I think people don't think of biscuits other than for breakfast, but we eat them with all meals of the day. Like we make sandwiches on biscuits, or always with a soup, you would have biscuits, right? Let me see how many other questions I have. Hold, please. When is the book being released? Oh, great question. Thank you for that. The book is not coming out until spring of 2027. So right now I'm doing all of the writing. So I'm putting together all the recipes, and then we'll take all the photographs, which is going to be great. And then we will send it off to the printer to get it printed. So it takes about a year. The whole process takes about a year, which is so fun. Okay, so I just did this. I wound it all up together. You can see. And then I just press that together, and I always bake this little guy off. So that was 1, 2, this is my third one, right? My third rolling, and I still press. Sometimes I'll even try and make them look pretty, like that last one. This is just my tester biscuit. This is what I always eat. That's my favorite. Okay, now biscuits are all rolled out. What do we do next? The first thing we do is we're gonna clean up for a second. I saw a question on there that said, what is a cat head biscuit? Cat head biscuits are biscuits that are the size of a cat head, right? So they're a giant biscuit. You see those all the time. And cat head biscuits, a lot of times, if you'll do them if you're making like a pot pie, you would put a cat head biscuit on the top of it if it was an individual pot pie. You would also do them for biscuits and gravy a lot, but you wouldn't have multiple biscuits. You would have one cat head biscuit with the gravy around it, which is delightful. Okay, this is a bench scraper. Bench scrapers scrape your bench. And it's because flour and a little bit of moisture really almost makes like a paste, and it can be hard to get off of your surface. So you take your bench scraper, and the bench scraper really like scrapes up everything before you add water to the bench, right? So if you just added liquid, that would all turn very gluey. But instead, you just kind of scrape into your bench. So in like a pastry kitchen or a professional kitchen, oh, sorry about that. You will not really meet a pastry chef who isn't very attached to this. This is a very useful tool. Okay. So see how much I was able to get off even before I used a towel. And then you could still see it. Look, you just get it all off. You just kind of scrape it up. Whoop. And that makes cleaning up from biscuits a lot easier. My mom always laid down a paper bag. She would take like the paper bags from the store and open them up, and she would make biscuits on the countertop on the paper bag, so she could just fold it up and throw it away at the end, which I always thought was pretty cute. Okay, so now biscuits. What else are we going to do with the biscuit? We're going to put an egg wash on the top. This is just an egg. You can put it in with a little bit of the buttermilk if you wanted to. You can also put in a little bit of water. But honestly, I just do a little brush of a whole egg, and it makes it golden brown and gorgeous. Let's check the questions. Okay, what recipe are you most excited about in the book? Great question. You know, I think I'm very, very excited about, this is going to sound generic. I'm very excited about all the recipes, but it's not that. I'm excited because I didn't have what we think of as like the stereotypical upbringing of like in the South. Like my grandmothers did not teach me to cook, right? We were latchkey kids. My parents did cook a lot, but we also were responsible for cooking a lot because we were latchkey kids. And so when I started doing TV and when I started doing like Southern at Heart, the producers would ask all the time, oh, did your grandmother teach you this recipe? And I think that, and that's what I get asked all the time for people when they're interviewing me. And I think people have this vision of like sitting on a porch and snapping beans and your grandmother's weathered hands, like training you how to cook, but that's not the experience that I had. And really, I didn't have kind of any real written family recipes until my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, passed away, and I was gifted her recipe book. But she didn't teach me to cook those recipes, right? And so sometimes I felt like I didn't have family recipes, or I didn't have like a go-to recipe, right? You'll see them in the book. It'll be like Grammy's yeast rolls or something. And that is her recipe, right? But it's not her recipe that she taught me to make. So part of it is I've loved learning and meeting my grandmother and meeting my family through those written recipes. But I've also loved coming up with the recipes that I think are like go-to Southern recipes that you have to have, right? So you need a good mashed potato recipe. It doesn't have to be the most exciting. You need a base go-to recipe that then you can kind of gussy up in any way that you want to. And that's what I'm doing with the cookbook. I'm making it so if you are like me and you didn't have a ton of family recipes, you can have recipes that feel nostalgic and feel like home that you can take and update if you want to, but you can also be very, very like confident and you can trust in their just classic recipiness. So a recipe like this even would be a twist on it. This would be my buttermilk recipe, my buttermilk biscuit recipe, but the twist is to add in half whole wheat flour. That's just a twist, right? But we need our classic buttermilk recipe of a biscuit to start. Bake these off for about 12 to 14 minutes until they puff up and they're golden brown. I'm going to throw those in. Wow. We're not going to wait for that though, y'all. I'm just going to show you. Dun, 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 dun. These are the ones that I made before. Okay. What? Look at them. Oh, the other thing I wanted to talk about is salted. I use salted butter in this recipe in particular because I want them to be very, very savory. And so when you use salted butter, the lovely part about it is those salt solids kind of bake out and they bake around the edge of that biscuit. So the edges get super kind of salty and delicious, which I totally love. Let's see if this is a better angle. That's a pretty good angle. You can kind of see the height of them. Okay, so let me look. I'm grabbing this little guy. See? See the height? It doubles in size. Ta-da-da! Are cat head biscuits traditionally drop biscuits or are they rolled out? Cat head biscuits are rolled out. A drop biscuit is literally just drop biscuit is like you pick it up and you drop it down, right, off of your spoon. You don't do any of the kneading. And the drop biscuit is you mix it more in the bowl to develop the gluten. But those are the easiest, quickest, most classic recipe like if you're just starting on biscuits and you don't want to mess with the kneading, go with a drop biscuit. But when you're talking about a cat head or anything that's going to look consistent like these look, those are a rolled biscuit. Also, you can always just cut your biscuit into squares. It's fine if you don't want to roll again. It says, Guy says, I know the recipe says bake to 12 to 14 minutes. How long would you bake the biscuits for? Yeah, 12 to 14 minutes. Okay. What other questions do we have here? How about biscuit cutters? Oh, this is good. How many biscuit cutters have you bought at the antique store? Oh my God, so many. But you know, honestly, I buy biscuit cutters and I end up losing them a lot. And then also sometimes like with the new biscuit cutters, sorry, I dropped something. I wanted to show you this. With the new biscuit cutters, one of the things, this is why I like the ones from the vintage ones a little bit better. So this is a large, this is like a 4-inch biscuit cutter, which is this is a cat head. This is the size of a cat head biscuit. Oh, I'm so excited about that. But look at what happens. If there's any little bit of water on them, the new ones will rust. Wah, 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 wah. See, can you see that? Let me see. Oh, you know what? Here. Can you see that? See how it rusts? So I actually do prefer the ones from the vintage store. Like they're so much better. They don't rust like that. I mean, some of them do. They'll be like super rusty. But if you find one that's old that is not rusty, it's because it's not going to rust, right? Okay, so here's how I'd eat my biscuit. That question, how do you like to eat your biscuits best? With butter. So let's get a biscuit. Oh, I'm going to show you the inside, right? So these are definitely not, I've turned it to my little viewfinder. I have a viewfinder so I can see my angles right here. This is my viewfinder. This is my computer. This is a switcher. Right? So I did it like this, like that was the camera, but it's not the camera, it's actually over there, right? So there it is. There's the camera angle, not higher. Okay, so let's look on the inside of this biscuit, right? And if you're a classic person, like if you are a traditionalist, a lot of people will open their biscuits with a fork, just like you open an English muffin, so that it doesn't like smush the dough on the inside, especially when they're warm, right? So you kind of do that. And you can see this is a cakey biscuit, right? It's not a flaky biscuit. You can see the little tight little soft tender crumb. Ooh, yum. And my favorite part about this biscuit at the 450 with everything happening is that you will get, okay, you little angel, a super crunchy bottom, because I believe biscuits need crunchy exterior. Hear that? Crunchy exterior and tender interior. That's what you want. Look at these. Ready? Look at that bottom. What? Look at that bottom. What? Look at that bottom. What? Let's try a biscuit and I'm going to say goodbye. Do we have any more questions before we leave? No? Oh, what brand of butter do you like? Whatever one's on sale. I know. Some of them are saltier. I know. There's some rich butters out there. Honestly, I just get whichever one is like $3 a pound or less. I know. I use a lot of butter. But like that Tillamook butter or any of those European butters are delicious, but I use those to spread on. I don't use those for baking with. I talked and choked on the biscuit at the same time. Okay, you guys, thanks so much for being with us. If you like this format of the live, let me know. If you like to be able to see the camera angles, it's just something that we're trying to do so that you can see more easily. I felt like you couldn't see a lot when it was just wide, right? So I'm just trying to make them a little bit better for you guys, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye. Thank you. Goodbye. Now I need to learn how to turn this off and eat biscuit together in the stream. Goodbye. These biscuits